Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Safe and Strong, New Facility Strategies for Unpredictable Times. My name is Chris Zock. I am Senior Product Marketing Manager at ServiceChannel. Today, I have the privilege of posing your questions to one of our FM experts, Deb Millette. She will share practices we're seeing in the industry, and she'll answer your questions about how to respond. I'm also going to discuss the timeline for the pandemic crisis. Where have we been and what lies ahead? We hope this helps as you try to plan for an unpredictable future. We know that your lives and careers are being disrupted in unforeseen ways, so we appreciate you sharing your valuable time with us today. Before we begin, I want to share some ways you can participate in this live event. Do you want to ask about something impacting your FM team? Please submit your questions at any time using the Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar. You'll see the button at the bottom. Note that other attendees cannot see your questions, and we will keep you anonymous when we answer. We're going to launch an audience poll in just a moment. A window will pop up from Zoom. You can select your answer and then submit. Here's the poll question. Which has been most disruptive to your facility management team? Please select one of these options. Closing locations, working from home, stopping work orders, managing providers, or changing operations at locations. Now that poll window just popped up. You should see it on your screen. We're going to leave that open for a couple minutes for you to answer, and I will share the results shortly. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to Deb. Deb Millette is the Director of Digital Facility Transformation at ServiceChannel. She recently moved from CVS Health after a career of 28 years there, ending as the Senior Manager of Facility Administration and Analytics. During her tenure, Deb's facility portfolio grew to 12,000 locations, managed by a team of 30 people. She's an expert in implementing FM technology and helping clients streamline their facility operations. Especially relevant today, she has experience with incident management, including hurricanes, wildfires, and blizzards. Deb has worn every hat in facility and energy management over her career, including as an analytics leader, so she understands how to drive facility and provider performance. Hey Deb, how are you handling things these days?
Hi, Chris. Thank you for asking. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Well, I'm holding it together. As long as the internet keeps working for me, I think I'll survive. You're in Rhode Island, right?
I am, and you're broadcasting from the other side of the country in California. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm here in Pleasanton at the home office. So thanks for joining us here today.
Absolutely.
I look forward to this conversation. Before we ask Deb about how to respond to the crisis, let's talk a bit about what the future holds for us. I know my head is still spinning from what's happened in just the last month, but if we're stuck on what happened recently, then we won't be preparing for what's coming next. What I'm going to show here is a potential scenario, not a forecast. But we don't need to predict the future exactly to be better prepared for it. So how might the COVID-19 crisis unfold in the days ahead? First, let's align on where we are now. As of April 14th, we have over 580,000 confirmed cases in the US alone. The case count is indicated approximately here by the red line. The physical distancing measures we're enacting are indicated by these blue columns. As this virus threat and these physical distancing measures have increased quickly, they've had dramatic consequences for the economy and for jobs. In the bottom section, we show whether all locations are open in green or if only essential businesses are open in orange. You can see that non-essential operations started closing down in March. Now, economists say that at least a third of the economy is shut down. More than 200,000 stores have temporarily closed, according to Global Data Retail. Many of you are being directly impacted because your facilities are closed. Well, for others, your facilities are open, but you're straining to adapt to the new environment. In the last few weeks, FM teams have drastically cut their spending, whether locations are open or closed. So that's where we stand today. Now let's look into the future. While the path of the virus is unpredictable, we do know that the critical destination is the widespread distribution of a vaccine. With an aggressive 18-month schedule plus time for distribution, I'm showing here the vaccine providing us relief in November of 2021. Between now and then, life will not return to the old normal because there is still risk of the virus spreading again. The good news is that the extreme measures we're taking now are working, and new cases are leveling off across much of the US. Once we've seen consistent drops in cases and infection numbers for at least 2 weeks, health experts say we can consider loosening these restrictions state by state. In the graphic, I'm showing relaxation of measures and reopening of non-essential businesses starting in May or June. This will be a gradual process of relaxing measures and watching the numbers to ensure we're controlling the virus. We'll start reopening offices and stores first. The last things to open will be arenas and stadiums with large crowds. Even once these restaurants and shops reopen, the economy will recover slowly until there is a vaccine or other treatment. Besides these stay-at-home orders, people are afraid to visit stores, frankly, and many have just lost their jobs. Even after we suppress the first wave of this epidemic, there will likely be future surges in cases before the vaccine is deployed. We may see another wave of cases in the fall or winter season. There may be regional flare-ups in cities or towns, which will require regional shutdowns and restrictions. While businesses are being affected differently by this crisis, there are some consistent takeaways. We're midway through the first wave, but there are more waves coming. There will likely be multiple cycles of tightening and relaxing of physical distancing measures in the next 2 years. Those deemed non-essential may need to close again. The measures and shutdowns will be managed regionally, not at the national level. States, counties, and cities will make their own decisions on their own unique timelines. And FM leaders should prepare for these continued disruptions. While we can't predict the timing, we can have plans ready to respond quickly. The facilities team will play an important role in allowing businesses to adapt, to keep operating, while protecting not just their workers and shoppers, but also their whole community. And while we can't go back to the old normal anytime soon, we can plan to reopen facilities and to make them safe places that consumers and workers trust. There wasn't a playbook on the shelf for the first stage of this crisis, but FM leaders can be more prepared the next time the cycle repeats. To that end, today we're talking to Deb about plays that FM leaders are testing out. Deb, first let's review the results of the poll from just a few moments ago and see what people are thinking about.
That'd be great.
So, looks like the top answer was closing stores has been most disruptive with 1/3 of responses. And I suppose that's not too surprising considering those huge numbers that I just mentioned with 200,000 stores closed in the US. The second item has been working from home. And that, I can relate directly to that one because that's affecting a lot of us. The third item is changing store operations. So we're going to definitely be covering all these points here in the webinar here today. But if we don't answer your question, please submit it and we'll get to it. So Deb, I know you've been talking to Service Channel customers and your industry peers about what's happening. What actions are FM leaders taking to respond to this crisis?
It's a good question, Chris, and great commentary that you've had so far on the session so far. It's an understatement to say that this is a unique challenge, right? The crisis is ongoing and we don't know when it's going to end. As you said, I've been a part of incident management across the range of disasters, including hurricanes and wildfires and blizzards, but this is different. With this event, for the most part, in prior events, for the most part, we knew what to expect, right? After a storm and after the work ended and the work was completed, life went back to normal. We can compare a situation that we're in to something that we've seen before, but not with this pandemic that we don't know when it's going to end. And you keep thinking, when the hell is this going to be over, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really helpful to understand the potential roadmap to recovery, as you discussed. So when I think about the conversations that we've had with facility leaders, there really are three main actions that the leaders are talking about. The first one is they need to maintain a healthy store environment for workers and customers. They are enabling physical distance measures in stores. They're distributing hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes whenever they can, and they're ramping up cleaning efforts. The second one is they're adapting their business operations to fit this new environment. If we're considered essential, then they're remaining open with limitations, right? If they're termed to be non-essential, then they're temporary closing or maybe thinking about how and when they're going to reopen. Many companies, whether they're essential or not, are expanding their off-premises services like curbside pickup. And then lastly, the third, they're trying to maintain their provider relationships through this crisis. They're controlling spending and delaying non-emergency work. Even essential businesses are cutting back and reducing visits and conserving cash. But at the same time, they're communicating how their needs are changing, and they're checking in to make providers know when the stores are ready to open.
Yeah, that's helpful to understand what the leaders are facing at a high level. So let's talk more about that first action. It's hard to imagine something more important than keeping people safe when they visit your locations, whoever they are. So what are facilities leaders doing to make that facility a healthy environment? And how are businesses protecting their employees and customers?
Right. No, very true. I spent most of my career at CVS where our mission was helping people on a path to better health, and was proud to say that I helped keep those pharmacies running so people could get their prescriptions and their essential needs during a crisis event such as a hurricane or a blizzard. But like I said, this is a whole nother level. Not only do you need to keep these essential locations open so people can get their food and medicine, but you're responsible for protecting the employees and a customer from a virus that you can't see. And sadly, we've heard of several deaths of workers in grocery stores, which is heartbreaking. How can we keep these workers safe is definitely a question on every FM's mind. All facility leaders, from groceries to gas stations, are realizing they play a critical role in protecting the health of their community. The primary way which they're protecting the people is how we're changing these facilities to operate in basically two functions, right? It's by reducing the exposure inside the location, and then also by expanding operations outside.
Yeah. Let's start with the changes inside the locations.
Mm-hmm.
What are stores doing to protect the people inside?
Right. So, and everybody knows, right? Right now, the name of the game is physical distancing so that people stay 6 feet apart from each other at all times. I'm sure, Chris, going into the stores, you're seeing the decals on the ground marking a 6-foot distance. You're seeing the aisles now are one-way traffic to keep people apart. If people are still too close, they're adding physical barriers such as sneeze guards at checkout. And some of the capacity levels are reducing in locations to just 20% of what a fire code should be for the amount of people in that location. In some jurisdictions, that's a legal requirement. And then the second effort is to reduce surface spread. This means regular cleaning every surface that gets touched, like doorknobs and shopping carts and grocery counters. You need hand sanitizers and wipes for use by everybody. And some services are closed, like self-serve food equipment. And then people are thinking about contactless payment as preferred to instead of cash or signing receipts. And then lastly is increasing ventilation with outside air. Recirculation is definitely right now not recommended.
Yeah. I feel like we as shoppers are all learning these new behaviors
Mm-hmm.
for how to
Exactly.
navigate stores safely at this time. And what about expanding operations outside the location?
Yeah, now this is definitely an area of potential for those non-essential businesses as well. Even though restaurant, dining rooms, and retail floors are closed, these locations are still serving takeout or curbside pickups or even doing some delivery orders. I mean, if your company wasn't thinking and already testing pickups like this, then you're probably thinking about it right now. Pharmacies are starting to sell them creatively through commercials, and groceries through their drive-through windows. Um, Convenience stores are using their nighttime pass-through windows all day long. Think of that as just the beginning, right? People are getting very creative to help the community out there.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll continue to see innovative
Right.
ways to adapt these existing facilities for these new needs. So thanks for sharing that helpful list. So what about for these non-essential businesses that aren't doing these things yet because they're still shut down?
Right.
Are they, as they're planning for their reopenings, what do they need to do to be successful?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for businesses looking to reopen is that there isn't a single playbook for the whole nation, right? Many clients are asking us, what will the health department require for us to reopen? Well, every state and every county may differ with their own path for reopening. Each jurisdiction may require unique measures, and they'll change over time as cases go up and down, right? So given the complexity, I believe maybe the more important question is, how will we track all the different requirements from health departments around the nation? If you're a large chain, you need to manage your reopenings regionally. This will require a lot of coordination with the operations team, and think about how you're going to track whether locations are open. And once they're open, how are you going to track the physical distancing measures that you're insured to be compliant? How are you tracking the cleaning records? You need to be aligned with your operation team as you restart your facilities. So I recommend using checklists to coordinate those activities at scale, right? For reopening, your checklist would include tasks like asset preparation. What needs to be disabled or moved or maybe restarted? Is your sales floor ready for business? Are there the necessary physical distancing measures in place? And are your providers ready to resume work scheduling?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of work to do to get these stores back open, but thanks for those ideas. Let's talk more about the cleaning response you mentioned.
Sure.
But before we do, let me remind the audience to submit your questions in the Q&A box. You might have thought of some new ones as we're going through these slides. So Deb, how are facilities handling cleaning of the virus? It seems inevitable that you'll have an infectious person visit a location sometime, right? Like, they may be asymptomatic and they don't even know they're sick. But then they get tested and you'll find out. So how is that situation being handled?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking about that. They've been asking, and so we've been asking some experts in the janitorial field. You need to be prepared to quickly respond if there is an exposure risk from an employee or a recent customer. Let me share an example of what we learned, which is a cleaning plan adapted from a grocery chain store with 1,200 locations across the United States. The plan is executed by the company's cross-functional crisis response team in 3 different levels of cleaning for different risk scenarios. Level 1 is what they call standard cleaning, and it's conducted multiple times a day, every day. It includes wiping all the high-touch surfaces, and internal staff may be able to handle this on their own, or you can add capacity with vendors to help. Level 2 and level 3 are on-demand cleanings when exposure is confirmed or possible. And then level 3, again, for when they're closing a store for at least 12 hours to complete a disinfecting process with fogging. Some providers are even waiting 24 hours before they enter the facility after a positive test results, which is what the CDC's advice is. And then their crisis response team evaluates each situation based on their criteria. But it's not black and white, and they're following the CDC guidelines as best as they can.
Yeah, right. These cleanings do seem really critical. So if they don't happen, someone could get sick or even worse. How does the FM team make sure that they're getting completed?
Yeah, there's a real importance to track these cleanings and dates and service statuses for several reasons. And really, I think the tracking should go beyond cleanings to other safety measures that you're talking about. First, if you want to ensure the cleaning is done completely and on time, or else controlling risks, you can't control risk as planned, right? I recommend sharing these checklists with the providers that define the scope of work for critical deep cleaning jobs. List every surface that should be sanitized, down to shopping carts and basket handles. And then second, you need to keep a record of accountability, right? You need to communicate with the local health officials if cases or contacts are traced back to your location. You may need the approval to reopen. If people even just seem to be sick in your stores, you want to prove that you were taking the right measures, the right preventative measures. And then finally, I think you should be sharing with the public all the measures that you're taking to keep them safe. You can even work with your marketing team to create signage that talks about your cleaning regimens, your distance measures, your employee checks. Customers really want to know what you're doing.
Yeah, that would be reassuring right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the third action that you mentioned, Deb, is that FM leaders are managing their providers through the crisis. So how are they working with these service provider partners as they adapt?
Right. So first they need to communicate with their partners about their new needs, right? Communication and transparencies with your partner is more critical than ever. Although brands have stopped some more non-emergency work orders and they're talking to their providers about how to safely resume those in the future, right? In order to reduce the risk from a technician's visit, they're asking questions like, will a technician's health be verified by the provider daily before work? How should technicians communicate and interact with staff on site? Can you move away from paper signatures and go to digital invoices? And then secondly, they're evaluating the health of their providers to identify any risks in service continuity. Your service provider business has also likely been disrupted by this crisis, right? Check in with your service providers before reopening to ensure they're able to support you in that same capacity. Do they have enough staff working to meet the commitments in your SLAs? Do they need faster payments to survive a cash crunch? And then thirdly, they're looking to strengthen their provider network where they maybe need more help. Ask yourself, are you receiving the priority needed from our providers during this urgent period? Is the crisis creating an opportunity for some providers to step up and stand out as leaders? And unfortunately, it's also showing some other providers may be weak and more reactive. So Chris, many brands have been reaching out to ServiceChannel for some advice on finding providers, particularly in the janitorial service. So if an FM needs some help filling some gaps in their provider network, we can help identify the best providers in your area. Please let us know how we can help.
Right. And we do have data on, I think, over 70,000 providers. So we can definitely help with identifying some right providers for you. So now it's time for the audience Q&A. And it looks like we have some questions coming in. So let's start answering those.
Sure.
If we don't get to your question now, we will follow up with you afterward. And if you do think of a question later, just send us an email and we can follow up that way. Here's the first question. How will FM budgets and their scope of work for repair and maintenance services be impacted?
Yeah, I'm sure that's top of mind, not only on the FMs, but on their providers, right? I'm sure that's very much on top of mind for everybody. And changing budgets are going to differ, right, Chris? Of course, depending on each company's financial situation, and it's also going to differ by trade. So you're going to get many trades that are going to be pushed out or deferred because they're maybe non-essential at this point in time, right? When you think about painting, maybe some minor janitorial or minor general carpentry, or maybe some signage work. And then you're going to have others that have tripled, right? You take your janitorial, your vent cleaning, or your carpet cleaning. Not only are they tripled in work, but they also have increased safety protocols now.
Mm-hmm. And here's another one. What is changing for how providers go about performing their work?
Yeah, I mentioned a few points earlier related to this, like verifying that the technician doesn't have a fever. Some other things that are changing is mobile app allows for some providers to check in and check out without touching the store's phone, right? That's going to be important right now. Store hours can be limited. So, that might affect when a job can be completed. That might be different from what they were used to. And then if they're working at a dock location for you, our closed location? Are there different security measures that they need to worry about? Is there different security access?
Yeah, that makes sense. Here we go. How can we help make employees feel safe in the workplace when they come back?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you first need to take all the steps that we've talked about today to actually make them feel as safe as possible. And most important to your employees, communicate with them. They need and want to be aware of what your priorities are and steps you're taking to keep them safe. Ask them for their feedback every day. Ask them how they're feeling, how are they doing? What can we do better? People are scared right now, and rightfully so. But often people will feel better after you share some education about how the virus can be spread and how it can't, and then what you're doing about it in this crisis.
Great. More questions coming in. Let's see. How about this one, Deb? How should we think about changing the response times for work orders?
Yeah, I think if we talk about those non-essential trades, like maybe some that are not essential right now, maybe some minor carpentry work, I think, we really need to be open and communicate with our providers. We need to make sure we're using their time as wisely, make sure that we get them out there doing, what is critically necessary to keep social distancing and keep us compliant. I think the transparency and communicating with your vendor about what you believe as your company is essential to doing your business, whether it's inside or outside that location.
Right. Yeah, being flexible is definitely top of the list right now. Here's another one. How do we ensure we're following the right cleaning protocols? Is there somebody they should talk to?
Yeah, and I think like we did, talk to the experts, right? Talk to those janitorial experts. Follow the CDC guidelines. I think that's the most critical, and that's what we're doing too, right? We're talking to industry leaders. We're talking to those janitorial leaders that can help us and educate us as well on this process.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be continuing to learn from each other. And hopefully we'll keep coming up with better and better solutions over time, right?
Right.
Here's another question. What should be the first step that brands take for reopening? How do they, even just get started and make a plan?
Right. So I think just as it was in the beginning when this crisis started, I think that cross-functional coordination between their teams is crucial, right? They need to work with operations, they need to work with their safety and their risk management, and they need to keep their finance team in the loop. So I think it works with those. It's that same core group of cross-functional coordination and team that they need to collaborate with.
Right. I'm seeing multiple questions asking about, examples of checklists that they can use, templates that they can edit. I will say that we have been sharing some ideas of checklists like this with our customers. So we've been collecting them, we've been sharing them. So we're happy to share those after this event as well. If you have a specific request, please do send us an email and we will get one of those to you.
Yeah, that would be great.
On a similar note, people are asking about the best cleaning products. I don't know if we want to try to list off all the names here, but that is something that we can follow up with and share with you some recommendations that we're hearing from these janitorial providers. Well, it's 10:30, and that is all the time we have for today. But we look forward to continuing the conversation with this community in the days ahead. How can we help you? What should we cover in the next webinar? Send us your ideas to cv@servicechannel.com. We're going to email a link to the recording today so you can follow up and you can share this with your friends in your network if you found it useful. We'll follow up on the unanswered questions. You can continue reading more of our content on our blog and follow us on LinkedIn to learn more. Thank you for watching. Please take care.